Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith, episode 108. I am flying solo again tonight. Andres Barbosa told me that we should have this chair at Vic Braden Tennis College. It's in our classroom, and it's a chair that no one sits in. He said it would be much better than having two empty studio chairs. A great guest tonight, Austin Krajicek. Let me go through a few things on his bio. One thing that we've been doing recently with junior tennis players, teach a little humility, a little perspective, a little motivation. And sometimes I just have them repeat it after me, but I have had them be emailing it to me. I love the game. I'm a student of the game. My ability to teach tennis is improving. My ability to play tennis is improving. Currently, my UTR is such and such, but it'll improve because of my attitude and my work ethic. I think it's a very good exercise to have young players write their bio. The late Stephen Covey, with the author of 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, I think sometimes it's a little bit morbid to have someone write their own eulogy, but that was an exercise that he recommended. But let me go through Austin Krajicek's bio very quickly. Born June 16th, 1990, so he's 32 years old. I've known him since he was 7 years old. Brandon, Florida, I think that's going to be the birthplace. Confirm that, but he's a Florida guy. 6'2", lefty. Parents, Rob and Sherry, both athletes. I think that's a plus. We'll touch upon that. His wife, an athlete as well, played tennis at the University of Illinois. Junior tennis. So many things you say about junior tennis, but his junior career can just be highlighted really with Kalamazoo. He won Kalamazoo. That says it in one word in this country. The boys' nationals. You win that, and you get to go to the main draw US Open. I was really moved by that. I was taken as his guest. I went with his father in Austin. He played tennis at Texas A&M. Played under Steve Denton, who's been a guest on our podcast. Austin was Big 12 Freshman of the Year, Big 12 Player of the Year twice, junior, senior year, NCAA doubles champion. So you can kind of tell that his bio is a little bit different than one that we're having our beginning players go through now. All-American multiple times, singles and doubles. Texas A&M Hall of Fame, I believe it's called the Ring of Honor. Singles, highest ranking was 94 in the world, perhaps his best win, Kevin Anderson. Doubles, highest ranking, I believe it's current, is 15, perhaps his best win. Maybe there's more than one we could ask, over the Bryan brothers. ATP doubles, 15 finals, 5 titles. Challenger in singles, 12 finals, 8 titles. In future and challenger doubles, 52 finals. Won 32 times. 52 finals, wow. Just recently he was in the French Open final. According to my research, my homework, he's nearly $2 million in career earnings. Played World Team Tennis. I know as a kid he was on the U.S. Davis Cup squad as I think a 17, 18-year-old. I would guess that he's currently the second-ranked American in doubles behind Rajiv Ram. We'd have to double-check that. This is pretty impressive on a resume. He's an Olympian with his longtime friend from Tennessee, Tennis Sangren. They finished 4th. He's a member of the ATP Council, currently coached by Philip Farmer. But Austin Krajicek, so many things. I know Austin and his parents really well. It's a great story, and it'll be fun to talk to him. Let me get him on the phone, if I can do that with my telephone skills. And I hope it works. There you go, loud ring. You may have to turn down your machine while you listen to this. Hello, Austin.
Hey, Steve.
Austin Krajicek, welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, so should we start testing you right away? Life gives you the test first and the lesson second?
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe.
I'll start with a test question.
Okay.
Just read your bio. You have a very impressive bio. I was telling the listeners that we have our juniors just recite, I'm a student of the game. I love the game. I'm learning to teach. I'm learning to play. Currently, my UTR is such and such, but it's going to improve because of my work ethic and attitude. Because I think, as you know, in junior tennis, we'll talk about junior tennis, people get a little bit too uptight about 10 and under tennis. But your mother is from Pittsburgh. Beautiful Sherry.
Yep.
Here's a question for you, Krajicek. What do the pro teams in Pittsburgh have in common?
They've all won a lot of championships, except maybe not. I don't know about the Pirates, to be honest with you. But I like the Steelers and the Penguins.
The Penguins. I got a question for you on the Penguins coming up. Don't
All right.
have too many on Pittsburgh. You played the junior, not the junior, the futures tournament there probably more than once, huh?
I did. Yep, the clay court event up there.
Of course, I'm sure you've been there, obviously, with your mom. I know you've been there, but I've had so many people tell me they really like Pittsburgh. I've never been to Pittsburgh.
Oh, really?
But here's the answer, Krajicek. The teams in Pittsburgh all wear the same colors.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
They all wear the same color. So you're 0 for 1 right now, Krajicek.
All right.
With I know the Penguins have messed that up because every once in a while you see them wearing light blue, but for the most part they're gold and black.
Yep, yellow and black. Yep.
All right, Austin. Who is the captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins? Who currently is the captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins?
Currently is. Oh man, I wouldn't know that one. To be honest with you, I don't follow hockey as much as I should. I am a bandwagon St. Louis Blues fan now because my wife's family's in St. Louis.
I have that in my notes. I read that. I read, in college tennis where they have you go to a college tennis team's website, they have the questions for the player. What's their favorite movie? And what's their favorite such and such? And yeah, so I researched that your wife, she loves the St. Louis Blues. That's her favorite.
She does, yeah. She's a big Blues fan, big Cardinals fan. Honestly, St. Louis is a fantastic sports city. From what I've seen, the people love all the teams. They're diehards, which is pretty cool. That's awesome.
The St. Louis Blues, a lot of the players, it's amazing. The ones that they're traded. I think Kachuk would be in that category where they go back and live in Pittsburgh. Or excuse me, I got that wrong. They go back. They go back and live in St. Louis. They play at St. Louis, and then they go on.
Right.
Get traded, but that's how much they love St. Louis.
Huh. Yeah, that sounds all right. I mean, it does seem like a very you feel like you're home there. Obviously Midwest, and every experience I've had in St. Louis has been fantastic. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's another place. I've trained tennis teachers that work in St. Louis. One of my friends works at WashU, Matt Gall. They love it. Okay, here's another question. I'll ask this one because we're on the hockey. I only have 3 hockey questions, but I'm going to number 4, skipping 3. Your parents were both athletes. Your mother was a professional water skier. Father played the big 3 sports in high school: football, basketball, baseball. Played basketball in college. We talk about this. I think it really helps to be a college athlete. Is that your phone or our phone? Someone's calling in. Oh, all right. I apologize to our listeners.
No worries.
We're amateurs here. So your parents were both athletes. Mother's a professional water skier. Dad played basketball in college. When you were young, about 8 years old, I gave you and your father tickets to watch a Tampa Bay Lightning hockey game. You were only 8, so it was your father. It's all on him. What was the mistake?
The mistake was we left after the second period because we thought that it was that there were 2 halves in the game. We didn't know that there were three periods, and he actually, I'm sure he mentioned this as well, but he was trying to teach me something while we were there, and he was like, "Hey, trust me on this one. We're gonna beat the traffic here and beat the crowd and get out to the parking lot before everyone kind of has a mad rush home." So about a few minutes left in the second period, we darted out of the stadium and half jogged to the car, and we were shocked that we beat everybody by that much. And we found out that there was a whole nother period to go. And I think if I remember right, we missed a good ending to the game. And Tampa Bay, I think, came back and won, which was kind of funny. But yeah, I had no idea either, to be honest.
I don't think after that I ever called your father by his first name. It was just Krajicek.
Yeah, he earned that one.
But there's always a positive and negative. The positive is that it just lets you know he truly was a basketball guy.
That's right. And we beat the traffic.
No, he was a guest on the podcast. I mean, don't want to digress, but we did have fun asking him about being a referee and kicking Bobby Knight, the famous basketball coach, out of the game. Okay, now I've gone from Pittsburgh. Now I'm going to Ohio, where your father's from. Your father's a farm boy, milked cows. You've heard the story a few hundred times. Before the sun came up, he was out there milking cows. My question is Austin Krajicek ever milked a cow?
I have not. Nope. Yeah, it's probably disappointing a little bit, but nope.
I don't really know how disappointing it is. I've never milked a cow either.
No, I have not. I love being up there. I really enjoy being in small towns and now kind of being an adopted Texan. I love the small town way of life, and we try to get outside and hunt and fish and do things like that I never did when I was younger in Florida, nowadays here in Texas and with my best friend from college. But so any chance we get to go up there to Cedarville in Ohio and stay with family, it's always a really special place. My wife loves it up there as well, so we always enjoy that. We never made the wake up call at 6. At least the milk cows. We might have been out there hitting serves or something, but not the milk cows.
Well, we'll get into that. I know you're a really hard worker, and I was told by the gentleman, Gabe Hermilio, told me that you were easily one of the hardest workers at Bollettieri's. We'll get into that. So you have got up early in the morning. We know you're not lazy, but I'm not really interested in learning how to milk a cow at this stage in life either. But, I wonder if Rob's forgot. It's been a few years since he's milked a cow.
I'd say he probably hasn't. I was probably like riding a bike, I would imagine, but who knows?
I think so. I think you're right. Okay, so now I'm going to the Rob Krajicek questions. Does his son know what is an iffer?
I do. Yeah, I've been told that story quite a few times as well, and I'm still trying not to be an iffer. So that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yes,
if I did this, if I did that, if I did this.
Exactly.
Senior moment. I'm having this all the time. There's the motivational speaker name. It'll come to me. I should have done this, and I should have done this, and I should have done that.
Would it be Zig Ziglar or one of those?
No, not Ziegler. I love Ziegler. Big, tall guy, huge guy. Anyway, I should have done this. I should have done that. In the end, I should all over myself. And we don't swear on the podcast. Here's another Rob Krajicek question for his son. What does the running back in football do when he's carrying the ball and is about to be tackled by a running back running right at him in close quarters? What's he supposed to do?
Well, there's a difference between a good and a great running back. So the good one looks for a place to get out of bounds, and the great one looks for someone to hit, I guess, or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's that mountain goat mentality. You just put your head down and go straight forward.
Exactly.
All right, now this is a stretch right here. I don't know if you're going to get this one. This is from the Rob Krajicek file. What is oughta been hair?
Oughta been on a dog's behind.
There you go. You got it.
Yeah.
I think your dad still got some hair, but when I was thinning, he told me I had oughta been hair.
You used a different word there as well, but
yeah. But, I'm on the team now where you just don't have any hair. All right, now A&M. This is an A&M question.
Oh boy.
What is Johnny Football's middle name?
Ooh. His actual middle name, right? You're not talking about. I don't know. I wouldn't know.
You just give me an answer. I think your question might help you with the answer. No, I'm not looking for his actual middle name.
Johnny. We just always call him Johnny Football.
Actually, his middle name is not so nice. I know remember watching him play. Was he there when you were there?
He was a redshirt freshman when I was a senior. So actually, I had met him a couple times. It's kind of hard to believe, but he was a super shy kid when he came in, and he had a crush or was friends with some of the girls on the soccer team, and we were, pretty close with them. Just all the athletics had shared a study hall and stuff, so we'd hang out with them, and we were at a soccer party or something like that one of my last years, and Johnny was there, but he was kind of over in the corner and super shy. It was kind of funny. So really nice kid, and nobody obviously knew anything about him or anything. And then the year after that is when he kind of obviously had a tremendous couple games and became the guy. And it was funny thinking back on that because he was anything but shy after that. But yeah, so I just knew him a little bit, and some of the guys that I was on the team with, Jackson Withrow, who's also still playing doubles now, really at a really high level. He's good buddies with Johnny, so he knew him a lot better than I did. But I sure enjoyed watching him play football. That's for sure.
Jackson Withrow in Nebraska. When he was recruited, Steve Denton, he came to come down and video made. He spent a week with us. But the answer is from a comic. I can't give the comic's name. I would, but I don't remember who said it, but it's pretty good. I'm sure the comic had a writer, and it was during his pro career. But what's Johnny Football's middle name? It's Johnny College Football.
Yeah, that would be a pretty good one.
Not so nice. Here's a true or false question for you. Your college coach, Steve Denton, 1984, new world record on the serve, 138 miles an hour. It stood for 13 years. Is that true or false?
I know he had the ace record for speed. I actually don't know that one. I would say true, though, just because of how big his serve was. But the actual record on that, I thought it was more for the number of aces in a row. But so I would say true, though.
No,
the serve is massive.
It's true. With number of aces, I looked it up. I have to ask our fact checker to dig deeper with. I thought he had that record, and it was 12, and then Sam Querrey broke it at 13. But what I read on Querrey's page was the record's 10. But when I worked for Braden, Vic used to show Steve Denton serve twice a week to the weekday group and then the weekend group. Steve was recently down here at the clay courts. I'm down in Boynton Beach, and just a few miles away from the Delray Beach Center. And Steve, actually, his mechanics remind me, or Kyrgios's mechanics remind me of Steve's. He's so loose and out in front, out to the right. I've got one last question for you here. Your former doubles partner as a junior, longtime friend, Jameer Jenkins. You could pass on this as well, but I know that Serena's no longer working with Patrick Mortagulu. I've mispronounced the name before as Moneygulu. But with who paid Jameer Jenkins, Serena or Patrick Mortagulu? You can always say, I don't know.
I would, I don't know for sure, but I would say Serena because he's still with her. So when he was when she was playing in DC this summer, he was there, and it's always good to catch up with him. But I mean, I would just assume that it was Serena because of that. But I wouldn't be able to know 100%. But
I mean, obviously Kalamazoo is a big time, but that's a national tournament, international tournament. You guys were maybe 15, 16 where you got to the semis of the juniors? How old are you guys?
Jameer? Yeah, we in US Open, we finaled there. That was in that would have been I guess we were 17. I believe it would have been 17, right? Because I would have went to school, I guess, the next spring.
Actually, you and Jameer, I know you worked with us for a week on doubles, but
yeah,
because you were young enough to when you went back the next time. I mean, you still could play junior, so you did it. You weren't 18.
Okay, so maybe it was 16. Yeah, they might have been.
Yeah. Okay, the beginning with us, you were 7 years old. You were on your way to the Little Mo, and we filmed your strokes, and we said go to the Little Mo and then come back. Don't worry about your strokes until you get back from the Little Mo. I tell people all the time, if you were to ask about Roger Federer's tennis at age 7 or 8, And if you read, I mean, both parents were really, really involved, but it was more the mom who became a volunteer coach. And, she started at a very late age and became a very good player. But I think you could ask the parents more. I think your dad, Rob and Sherry, both so supportive, but your dad was the one who was doing everything we recommended.
Right.
The original tennis mate, your dad tells me he still has it, and he could set it up tomorrow, but he has it somewhere in storage.
Yeah, he does. Definitely does.
What is your memory from practicing in the garage? Because we tell people all the time, set up your garage.
Yep. No, I mean, we hit a ton of balls on the tennis mate. My mom and I used to play mini tennis as well. Before that time, a lot in the street, and I hit a lot of balls on the wall. At a club in Brandon before. I think I was training over there with you, Steve. But yeah, we put a lot of time in on the tennis mate and hitting balls off cones and getting that good technical base. I think that's been a strength of mine since the beginning. So I'm obviously extremely grateful for that. And I just remember a ton of reps. So that's for sure.
I think it really helped that your parents were athletes.
Right.
Hitting off the cone, swinging the sock. Your dad, I just remember, the minivan, he had you listening to tapes.
That's right, yeah.
I can remember, I can't remember, there's an Irish name, the guy who had so much to do with Saddlebrook, where your dad set it up, where you went and got to watch Sampras practice, and there's so many things from those. We on our course, Tennis Intelligence Applied, we show you, I think, at age 8 and age 18, where that's where people have to do the fundamental work. But not so many years after that, I really liked the gentleman from Morocco, Omar, who helped you out.
Yeah, Omar Lemina. Yeah, worked with him for many years there before IMG and then obviously going to college, but.
Yeah, he used to do this thing, like if you were showing any negative body language, like he was wiping off tears. But no, he was, getting you up early in the morning, and you're working off the court. What did your recollection with working with him?
Yeah, I mean, it was great. We had, like you said, I mean, he'd be there. He was, like my parents, he was very an early person. So, I mean, if we have practice at 8, he's there at 7:15. And so he used to come pick me up at our house in Brandon. And I think we'd even meet at like 7, and he'd be there at literally like 6:05 and would just wait outside. And then, so obviously I'd be out there a little bit early, and we'd go to the gym first, and we have, an hour and a half in the gym. And then we go to the court and we hit for 4 hours. And it was a great time. We had a bunch of fun. I mean, it was really just, like I mentioned, the reps. I mean, we were in the gym for an hour at least, and it wasn't like, it was like some unbelievably, detailed workout program like IMG had years later, where the trainers were the best in the world. They had all of this figured out. It was more of us kind of, doing the best we could with what we knew, and just trying to get stronger, being on a treadmill a little bit, running, biking, doing different things, doing a lot of core stuff, doing machines that, I didn't necessarily know too much about. I mean, I had some experience at the Palmer Academy there before that, but, I wasn't a fitness expert by any means. So we were putting a lot of time in there, and then we'd go to the court, and, I'd bring, my lunchbox with me. So we'd have dates and snacks and raisins and this and that. And we'd practice for 3 to 4 hours, and we'd do long stretches before breaks, but then we'd take, 5 minutes at a changeover and have some snacks, refuel, and then go again. And we'd stay out there for literally 3-4 hours at any park we could find near our house or clubs, all over Tampa, obviously. But we put in that work, every day, whether a tournament was coming up or not. And I think, Omar had a great perspective on junior tennis. I think sometimes that can be lost on the parenting side, especially where these tournaments seem like such a big deal. And, I've got a big event coming up, the Super Nationals or this or that, or whatever it may be, a sectionals, a state tournament. And in the grand scheme of things, it's pretty insignificant, I would say, and I think we had a good grasp on that, on building for the future and just trying to become a better player, and not over analyzing every match and taking every loss is devastating. I mean, it's also a very easy thing to do in tennis, which is a unique sport in that regard, with how much you lose. But I think he had a very good grasp on that. So he helped, with my parents who maybe didn't know as well, how non-important junior tennis was at some points, was able to give a good perspective on that. And I think it helped me in my transition into IMG and obviously switching over to ITF tournaments and then playing some futures and stuff before college. Just kind of keeping a longer term perspective, which is pretty hard to do as a junior, that's for sure.
Well, I think also working with an immigrant, someone who, he's in a new country, new language, trying to make a new way for himself. But he also, too, the emotion. I always think of your dad as being a very easygoing guy, but obviously, if he needs to be intense, he can be intense. There was one time, because when you needed clay courts, you would come over to HCC because we had access to clay. And you would come over, and there was one time where your dad was there. He wasn't, he really did a very good job letting other people coach. Being, ideally, to have the player play, the parent, the coach. I mean,
sure.
It's obviously very difficult to coach your own kid. But there was a time where your dad wanted you videotaped, and Omar didn't want you to be videotaped. And I'm just standing there. It's like, well, I'll videotape him, or I won't videotape him. And so anyway, the two boys had a little bit of an argument, and Rob won the argument. I guess in the end, he was writing the check. But no, I thought that was a very significant part of your junior career, where you weren't at an academy, you weren't at a club, where your parents arranged, where someone was really. And I think you would have been doing that on your own in many ways, because you were always organized. But I dealt so much with your father, and I know he's super organized. But you were way ahead of your time as far as having the right snacks and showing up where it was a professional approach. It was very, very good. I know you've already mentioned IMG. I think you were 12. I remember your father. Maybe I should keep this a secret, but I don't think so. I always tell people, there's always somebody watching. But your dad, you might have been 8 years old, and your dad would say that there were scouts, there were Nike scouts in the stand. There were people here from Prince and Fila, and you guys better behave and play well. And actually, my son Mikhail, from a political standpoint, he still has some Rob Krajicek-isms that he shares. But tell us about going to Bollettieri's. I think that was a great setup for you, because your parents were only an hour away in Brandon. You were born in Brandon, and that's where the first years were, right?
Yep, I grew up in Brandon, and IMG is just down the road, a little over an hour 15, just a little bit too far down in Bradenton to drive every day. It worked out great. I was 13, 14, somewhere right around there, and was able to receive a scholarship to go down to IMG and live there full time, basically. So I'd live there during the week and stay in the dorms, and then I'd come home on the weekends. So that was the benefit of being close to home, is I could come home on the weekends. But obviously, the longer I was there, the more tournaments we played, so there wasn't as many weekends to do that. But it worked out great. Fortunately, being able to be homeschooled, by Laurel Springs, and it worked out with our schedule wise. But yeah, IMG was an interesting experience. I think I don't think it would work for everybody. It takes a unique guy. I think it was all tennis all the time, and we were in the gym at 7, which I was a bit used to with Omar, which was a benefit for sure. But my dad always mentioned when they ask jump, you say how high, and I think that translated well into that environment. I mean, with Red and Nick obviously coming out quite a bit as well. They were very tough guys, very emotional and fired up and screaming all the time. So I fit in pretty well to that environment. I liked it. I worked hard. It was tennis all the time. We were in the gym, practice, quick lunch, back on practice, and then in the gym again for a full fitness session. And then, so you're going 7 to 6, pretty nonstop. And then big dinner, and then you're trying to do some school in the evening, which obviously was difficult when you're as tired as you were. But, they did a great job of making it matches almost every day. We played matches every afternoon, and you were held accountable. There's a ladder system type setup where, no matter who you were playing or what court you were playing, it mattered. So you were always playing different people from everywhere, and, older, younger, different styles of play. They cheated. A lot of situations like that where it made you a better player, better competitor, I think is really what their strength was there. So I think I learned a lot there physically. I think on the fitness side, they had a very good and professional setup, with prehab routines. Obviously if you got injured, rehab, they had the top-notch facilities for injury recovery, but I think a lot of the injury prevention stuff really gave me a good base, going along obviously with having good technique from a young age. And I think that's one of the more important things you can do to prevent injuries later on. So I was fortunate with that. A lot of the trainers there were on us all the time to be professional and do all the extra stuff, cross the T's, dot the I's. And I think that gave me a very good base where I was able to stay healthy. I mean, once you get to a certain point in your career, a big part of it is staying healthy and being able to compete. I mean, if you can keep your level at a certain standard and just stay healthy and play, the results come as long as you focus on the right things. It's just kind of being able to go out there. I mean, there's a lot of players that, big time players that have the talent and they're there, and but injuries keep sidelining them, and that's a big part of the game. So I thought IMG was extremely good for that, and and also just on the competitive front, definitely.
With so many questions, so many stories. Now you were there until you went to A&M as a base, right?
Right. Yep. For about 3.5 years.
And then off and on, you used that once you started your pro career. You still went back?
I did, yeah. I came back after school for a bit. I was at Saddlebrook initially after school, actually in Tampa for probably a year and a half or so, and then went back to IMG for a year. And I always, even when I was in school, I would do my off seasons usually at IMG, for a couple weeks, and obviously kept a very good relationship with those guys and love it down there. So it's, I was down there quite a bit, but yeah, I had about another full year after college that I was back at IMG, and then kind of moved on from there. But spent plenty of time in Bradenton, that's for sure.
You've been on the tour for a long time now. The Nick Bollettieri IMG alumni is impressive. You find yourself all the time running into people from Bollettieri's.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they have the best of the best for sure. A lot of amazing players and coaches, and just now, I mean, nowadays with how big the academy's gotten, it's funny that even in other sports, so even if you're around big time football programs like A&M obviously, or other schools like that, the guys will be going down to IMG, to train for the draft or things like. They've got 7 or 8 sports now down there, and the football setup is amazing. So the gyms and the facilities now are really top notch. It's significantly grown since I was there even. So. Oh no,
it's so impressive. I've been there for years and years. I remember when it was at the Colony in Sarasota. I went to observe Nick in 1979, and it's How You Slay the Dragon. And I was just watching, and he started yelling at me, "What are you doing?" And he came over, and he had worked at All-American Sports. In fact, with an investor, he started All-American Sports. It's interesting, Harry Hopman was in charge of the juniors. Nick was in charge of the adults. So he comes over, and he's screaming at me. And he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, a mutual friend of ours told me you're the best tennis teacher in the world, and I need to watch you." And I told him it was Ronnie Meyer, who, a 5th grade teacher from Wisconsin. He ran the summer camp at Amherst College in Massachusetts. And he's right there. I mean, Slay the Dragon. He put his arm around me, "Stevie, my boy," and I was in. Just had to say, I'm here to watch the best. But Bollettieri, he created the toughest playground in tennis. fantastic. Actually, I was talking to Harold Solomon today, top 5 player in the world. I was told that he had heard that Nick was in the hospital. I hope he's all right. I mean, I hope he can make it to 100 and beyond.
Yeah. I think he's 91 now. I think he was doing better. I did see some posts of some people visiting him, and he seemed in pretty good spirits. So I'm hoping he's doing okay.
With last time I heard Nick speak at a coaching conference, someone raised their hand and said, "What keeps you going?" He said, "Alimony." Yeah, a guy like that, you talk about confidence. He was married 8 times, but only to seven women. So he convinced one woman, "Hey, marry me again." So you got to love that. Tell us more about Red. My visual on Red is you guys show up at your courts. You're maybe in this group of 2 courts or 4 courts, and if somebody doesn't have their band, their skip rope, their running shoes, they don't have their water jug. Everybody's got to run around the facility, and the facility's got larger and larger. And he gets on his old women's bicycle, yells at somebody else. Yells at somebody else to get on a golf cart, and they're going to make sure that no one cheats. That guy, he's a grizzly bear. Tell us a little bit about Red.
He's a great guy. I mean, he's a grizzly bear on the outside, and he's actually a very, very nice guy. Obviously, as I got older, I got to know him a little bit better. And, I mean, just a super nice guy. When he gets away from it, he puts on this face. That's awesome. I mean, it really is. It's enjoyable to watch. I mean, if you're there, it's quite entertaining, but as a player, especially when you're 15, it wasn't as entertaining. It definitely made you pay attention and focus on the details and be there on time and not forget anything. And, you said, "Yes, sir," and looked him in the eye, shook his hand firm. I mean, he was very, strict in that regard. He wasn't too, I wouldn't say really specific, obviously, in tennis teaching. I mean, in that kind of, technique and things like that, even strategy as much. He was just very, he'd get you hitting a ton of balls, and he had some tips here and there, but he kind of let some of the other coaches do more of the specific stuff. But he would just be screaming and hitting, and Nick would come out and be yelling at him, and he'd yell back at Nick, and Nick would bring out croissants, and Red would freak out and toss the tray, and what are you making these guys soft? And I mean, he would do all kinds of stuff to, if you're someone there watching or something, you thought it was hilarious. But man, when we were in it at the moment, we were pretty quiet, that's for sure. And if you lost,
no, go ahead.
Yeah, I would say if you lost a match or something, and maybe threw your racket or broke your racket, which is way worse, then he would get on you for a couple of days, and you'd be running and even washing dishes if you did the wrong thing, and then you'd be practicing with a lot of times he'd make us practice with some of the women pros that were there, as sort of punishment for us if we lost a match we shouldn't have lost or behaved poorly. And we obviously were playing matches every day, and that environment just makes you super competitive. So you don't want to lose anything, and obviously tensions were high. So there was quite a bit of frustration, and it just kind of all fed itself. And I think it made you a tougher competitor. Like I said, I think, just playing that many matches and getting that much experience, it kind of like, just super accelerates your experience curve there. Because you're playing so many more matches than a normal junior, that may be playing a tournament every other weekend or whatever it may be. And you don't play as much. This, in that environment, we were literally playing matches every day. And, it felt like sometimes when you got to go to the tournament, that was the vacation a little bit. You kind of get to go there and relax, and you don't get yelled at, and you can sleep in a little bit. It was a strange environment, but a very good one. I mean, for the right personality that really liked tennis and wanted to improve, I think it was a phenomenal environment.
With Red, speaking of bears, Bear Bryant called all his assistants in one time and said, "I'm tired of being the only grizzly bear here. Everybody else is a teddy bear." And he goes, "We got to flip it. I'm going to be the teddy bear, and everybody else is going to be the grizzly bear." But Nick Bollettieri at one point, in the back room talking to his coaches, he just told them, "I'm going to be screaming at you," because that fear factor, and like everybody's going to be like on their toes and brain switched on. Talking about Red can lead into Tommy Haas. So Tommy Haas, he went there I think when he was 9, was a little homesick, but by the time he was 10, give or take, he was back there, and he, like you, even more so. I think he probably spent more years than you there.
Yeah.
But I've seen, and again, I'm not like you. I only was there now and then for tournaments and such. It used to be an open door. Now, last time I was there, you have to have credentials pretty much to get in. They're running it differently. But it used to be you just walk in and observe. But Red and Tommy, they used to yell at each other, and Haas got good enough where when he was a pro, he goes, "You're fired."
He'd fire him multiple times a day. Yeah,
well, that's funny, multiple times a day. Tommy Haas, when I go to Bollettieri, it's just like, okay, I've taken a group of juniors. There were so many tournaments there. I've seen my juniors play, and it's like, well, there's a few other things I can watch while I'm here. There's so many things. It's like a smorgasbord of tennis. But how about Tommy Haas in basketball? Did you spend much time watching him play basketball, or did you play any pickup basketball with him?
I didn't play much with Tommy, to be honest. I was a bit afraid of him. I just recently started speaking a little bit, more with him. Now he's the tournament director at Indian Wells, but when I was at IMG, I witnessed several of those blow-ups between him and Red, obviously, and I've been kicked off the court by him a couple times. Not for bad behavior, but for missing too many balls. They ran a tight ship there. If you missed 2 in a row, so if you missed 2 before Tommy missed 1, you were kicked out. It was just no questions asked. And Red had a way of, before practice, you would think that the worst thing you could say to someone before something like that is, hey, you better not miss a ball because he's going to get very angry. And so he'd always make sure he told us that before we started. And when you miss, after the first 5 minutes, you miss one, you get very nervous because Tommy, you'd go through 30 minutes warming up down the middle and Tommy would not miss one ball. It was actually amazing how clean he hits. I still haven't seen anyone that hits cleaner than him, just all the time. It's wild. It's
amazing technique.
It's
so clean.
Insane. Yeah.
Clean's the right word. Efficient. Least amount of moving parts.
Exactly.
Least amount of muscle recruitment. With say that again though. So for our listeners, if you miss 2, how'd that go?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So if you missed a shot and then he feeds it back in and you are in the next rally, if you miss again before he misses, like if he were to miss 10 shots later, top of the net or whatever, then you're a little bit, you can kind of take a breath, But if you miss 2 in a row, you're gone. So you're Tommy just say next, and you're out of there. So you were very, very nervous, but at the same time very focused. That's to say the least. But there was several times where we'd be playing baseline games or something like that, and that's if you get past the danger zone in the warm up, and he'd win a couple points, and Tommy didn't like it. He would just obliterate some rackets, and that's when Red and him would get going at it, and it was definitely something to be seen. But we had plenty of those practices. But man, the guy he was intense and worked hard. Like you said, clean. I've never seen a guy hit the ball just so clean all the time. He'd take a week off and he'd be doing the same thing. It's crazy.
No,
it really is impressive.
Number 2 in the world. It's too bad he had that shoulder operation. He had it twice in 1 year. I do think as clean as he hit the ball, though. He had the toss like Edberg and Rafter. He had the toss too far over his head.
Right.
Just throw that in there as an opinion. It's good to have an opinion once in a while. With but Tommy Haas, remember your dad told me one time where obviously your dad spent more time picking you up, dropping you off perhaps than your mom, or maybe I was around Rob more than Sherry. But
sure.
Rob goes, and you go, hey, that's pretty cool. Tommy Haas is saying hello. Hey, Austin, how you doing? But yeah, our listeners have to realize that you were, 12, 13, 14, 15. So you were shy and it wasn't,
definitely.
It wasn't like you're going to sit down and have a conversation with a guy who's 2 in the world.
Definitely not. No.
With Nishikori is a good friend of yours. What's going on with him?
Yeah. He's been, kind of unfortunate with, just unlucky, I guess, with a lot of injuries and Yeah, I'm not sure. It's been a little bit since I've talked with him. Obviously, he hasn't been playing too much. But yeah, we lived together for pretty much the whole time, for about 3 years when I was there, and kind of came up. He was obviously still playing juniors and some futures at that time, and he's also a shy guy. He's a funny guy. He did a very good job of he speaks English great, and he actually spoke pretty well even when he was younger. But he used to use that as an excuse not to have to talk that much to everybody and do a lot of interviews and stuff. So he was a very smart, selective, shy guy. But yeah, we had some great times at IMG, and obviously he's an unbelievable player. I've got to play him a couple times in singles when he was at his peak, and had a couple looks at him. But the guy is just an incredible athlete, backhands world class, and yeah, it's not many guys that have the speed that he has. That's no question.
With I remember it was a televised match where you went 3 sets. Obviously, you grew up with the guy, so you had no off factor, right?
Yeah, that does help. That helps a lot. And that's one of the other big benefits of being at IMG and practicing with those guys and being around the best. I mean, you kind of, you don't ever necessarily lose that, depending on the court you're playing on, but it does give you some familiarity when you're out there, and it does make a big difference, especially in some of the medium tournaments, where I played K in Memphis, where, it was a stadium court, but, I was a good bit more nervous when I played him the next year on Margaret Court Arena in Australia with the roof closed. You're a little bit more nervous in that situation, definitely, but it does help a lot to take the off factor away, is just to be around the best and kind of get used to the level a little bit. So
I don't know, on the tour, have you met Andy Fitzell?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay, so Andy did this. He did this commercial with Roger Federer, and it basically takes a full day to shoot a commercial. And,
sure.
I think the listeners could look it up. The line Roger it was for a car, and he said, "Well, my pick-me-up truck." And anyway, so he's wearing a mustache. There's a disguise, and people could find it on YouTube. So they're just sitting around, and Roger said to Andy, he goes, "Hey, I can tell you've played tennis," because they hit during the commercial. And he said, "What do you do?" And he said, "Well, I spent a lot of time with Vic Braden, and we study technique, and what's the most efficient way to hit a tennis ball." And Roger asked Andy, "Who's the most efficient pro player today?" And Andy said, "Well, you tell me." And his guess was Nishikori, which I thought was interesting. It was just based on that beautiful backhand of his. But
right.
He was really fast, though, correct? Speed.
Oh, it was, wildly fast. I mean, the point was never over. That was one of the hardest things playing him. I mean, I still don't think I played. I mean, Demon R, actually, Alex, is extremely fast as well. We just played him a couple weeks ago in Cincinnati, but K is, I mean, in singles, he's the fastest guy I played, I would say.
This is a story I tell people, money can't buy, they can't buy this type of experience. Your dad had you up in Tampa, and we're filming you, and you're talking about, on the return, you could take it like a tabletop sometimes. And this is more in singles. It's tough to play a tabletop return because the person's going to poach. But in other words, like a volley with an added follow through, linear pattern.
Right.
And so one day you're up at our place, maybe on a Sunday, and you go back because if you didn't have a tournament, you were taking Sundays off. But you go back and you're practicing and playing against Karlovic. What's it like to return serve against? I mean, I know you spent even when you were staying with us and you were a pro with Isner.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, his serve is incredible. I was fortunate enough to beat him actually in a couple tournaments there too, which was pretty cool. But I mean, it's just coming from such a different angle. That's really what gets you. It's not necessarily the speed. I mean, there's obviously some guys, practicing some with Andy Roddick back in the day. His serve is coming way faster, but those guys just can produce angles. I mean, they can hit flat serves in all the spots. I mean, Isner is the same. You almost get to the point where you try to take away 2 or 3 spots, and kind of think through what they might be wanting to do. But I mean, those short returns, I mean, actually taking taking the returns early. Sometimes it's almost easier on Karlovic and John too to return the first serve than the second. I mean, the second gets up so high.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. I remember watching Karlovic. Again, I've seen Isner play in practice quite a bit, but yeah, the second, just like, guys, why don't you just hit 2 second serves, because it's bouncing as high as the fence.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I mean, obviously in the first serve they want the quick reward of an ace, but if you're able to get your racket on it, it's arguably considerably easier to return the first than the second.
Max Mirny, he's a little bit older, but he was there when you were there, right?
He was, yeah. I love practicing with Max. He's another guy that's just a great role model, the most professional. I think his reputation, especially on the doubles tour at the end, is he was just as professional as it gets. I mean, the guy, he literally did everything the right way, and had an unbelievable career, singles and doubles. Winning many slams, and I think he was. Where did he get to in singles? Was it top 15 maybe, or even a little bit higher than that?
No, he was up there.
Or not quite. Yeah.
I remember.
But unbelievable guy.
No, he. I don't know if he was top 10, but he was
close. Yeah.
Close. Yeah. The alumni. Going back to the intensity, obviously you're an insider. For myself to be an outsider, the killer bee or the queen bee theory that the best player gets the first court. So if Tommy Haas or Maria Sharapova come out and you're up front, you got to leave the court and they just take your court. Is that true?
Yeah, that's definitely true. Yeah, I mean, Nick had his court up front, and you rarely got to practice there. If you came back for some extras, maybe late, 5, 6 o'clock when everyone was kind of finished, then you might get to hit up there. But yeah, literally in off season, it would be from the top court down, and it would just basically go by ranking or, not necessarily to the spot, but I mean, prestige carried a little weight there too. So, all those guys that have won slams or done really well in slams, they always had the front couple courts, and then you get shipped down to the kind of the bottom unless you were hitting with one of them. So it was, motivation, of course, to play well and get a chance to hit with those guys, and just kind of see where their level matches up to yours. And obviously that exposes some of your weaknesses and what you can improve. So
during your tenure there, did they still have that club that had 21 courts? It was not at the main site, or did they sell that by
we had, I guess there was, I don't know the exact number. There was probably 30 courts. So they had all those hard courts, and then they had the indoor center, and they had some green clay at the back. And then they were just building. I think when I first got there, they didn't have across the bridge. There was like a little swamp area. And then on the other side of that, which is now where they have an unbelievable facility and locker rooms and more apartments and baseball center, golf, everything. But they added some courts on that side, kind of the swamp. And there was only, at that time, I think only like 6 clay courts. They were a bit better clay courts, but I think they've added even a few more now. But that was the only setup that I knew there.
Yeah, he was first at the Colony, and then before they bought all of the land with the orange groves and the new facility, the campus they have now, they did have a club with 21 courts. I think at one point it was like 77 or 95. Where you just hear the coaches, we're sending you to court 78. We're going to put you on the last court. But I do think that it had so much to do with the environment where, drill work in the morning, you play matches, and if you were to lose, you're going to go down in the, you can get lower, you could be placed in a lower group, correct?
Yeah, definitely. It was everything counted. Obviously there were some guys that, really were the focus point of the top group, but it was all up for grabs. I mean, if you started beating a bunch of guys, you were going to move up and maybe get more time with Nick as well. And if you lost, you were headed the other way, and you just be bumped down the groups, and and it happened to a lot of guys.
Yeah, I know Ty Tucker's a fan of yours. You were with Chase Buchanan, and you're practicing with Ohio State team in the summer, and Ty calls me up and goes, "This kid Krajicek, he's got the best return I've ever seen." And but what we say with the Ty is there's no such thing as a practice match, and I think that comes from Bollettieri. Is that there's so many positives to that. I mean, I think it's pet peeve number 972 when a kid, I'm working on my game. You can work on your game and compete at the same time. I do realize that some kids, if they're just making all these changes, it's good to take a little bit of a time out.
Sure.
When you were really young, you're there and you were asked to be a sparring partner with the girls. I think that the top girls in the world, you just go Billy Mays or Larry Godfrey. Billy Mays with Billie Jean King, Larry Godfrey with Chrissy Everett. I mean, I remember watching Sharapova practice so many times with 16-year-old boys. Because the 18-year-old boys were a little bit too strong. I mean, last week or 2 weeks ago, Dave Secker from NC State said on our podcast that I asked about what would happen if the player who's the lowest on the men's team played the gal who was top on the women's team, and he said, they could have some good ground games, but once you bring the serve into it. But tell us, I know you hit with Serena as a sparring partner and helped.
Right.
How about with Sharapova and others?
Yep. Yeah, we hit. I mean, yeah, Maria was there, and Nicole Vadisova was top 10 during that period there. She was a very good player. And then Serena, obviously, Venus was in and out. Bunch of girls players that I'm maybe blanking on right now. But yeah, like I mentioned kind of jokingly, but they, a lot of times if you, we just had so many guys to pick from. Obviously, we had a huge group. A lot of times the guys that would misbehave or break a racket or whatever would have to hit with one of the pro girls the next morning, and so that kind of happened a few times to me like everybody else. But it was cool to hit with some of the best players in the world. And I mean, yeah, like you said, I mean, obviously some of the girls now hit just great balls from the ground. But I mean, there's some varietal things that men's tennis makes tough. If you start slicing some and when serves come into play, it does make it a bit different, for them. So it's, we didn't play that many points, I would say. It was more kind of hitting and doing specific stuff. You were just kind of a hitting partner for that practice since you were kind of in trouble, I guess.
But I do think also for men to hit with women is very good for working on just being consistent.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily bad. I mean, I probably haven't done it as much either, but, I joke sometimes that some of the best practice I have rhythm-wise, to be honest, was when I hit with Jessica Pagula, who I'm playing with in New York in mixed doubles. And when I warm up with her, and then I had my coach for a little bit, Stephen Armitage, was with the USTA. And I hit with his wife, Allison Risk.
Yeah.
Out at Indian Wells a few years ago, and I still think that was probably the best rhythm hit I've had in the last 5 years. I mean, it was a pretty good one. So yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's some guys have different opinions on that, but on points and stuff is different. I mean, obviously the serving is a bit different, but for just hitting, I think it's a great way to get a rhythm, and if you're trying to work on something specific, there's nothing wrong with that at all.
And Krajicek, if I get a chance to ask Allison Risk, she's from Pittsburgh, I'm going to ask her who's the captain of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Sidney Crosby.
She'll probably know.
And black and gold is the answer. With Agassi, you spent time with Agassi and Gil Reyes, is that right?
I did, yeah. That was an awesome experience for sure.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I was out there at, as I just mentioned, with Stephen Armitage out at Carson on the West Coast in LA, training at the USTA Center there a little bit after I'd moved from Florida. And, Stephen, the USTA was shifting some things around, which happens quite a bit. And they moved Stephen down to Lake Nona, which was the new facility in Orlando. So I was kind of just out there in LA. I've been working with Stephen for the past year there. And Stephen had a great thing going with, we had 10 or 12 guys out there kind of all working together, and everybody in the same year hit their career high. So it was really an unbelievable setup we had, but they relocated him. And then I was kind of there, not necessarily working with a coach specifically. So I was, obviously paying the extremely high cost of living that requires out there, and for no, really good reason for my tennis or anything. And so Gil Reyes had come out to a camp at Carson, and was just kind of, watching from a distance some of the guys and how everyone was conducting their workouts and practices and so forth. And Gil, after we all finished up, Gil kind of just came up and introduced himself. And, obviously I knew who he was really well. And he was like, hey, you should come out to Vegas sometime, and we'd love to have you out there and just work out a little bit. It'd be fun to, meet Andre and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I mean, I'd love that. So I set that up as soon as I could and went out there to Vegas and actually, I mean, still now I absolutely love Vegas. I think it's a beautiful city. I mean, obviously the Strip has everything you can imagine restaurant wise and entertainment wise, but outside the Strip, so to the west and Henderson and just a really, really nice city. It kind of gives you like a Palm Springs vibe. And so I enjoyed my time out there. I was there for about 8 months, to be honest. We were, when I was still kind of living in LA, but as soon as I'd get home, I'd rent a car and drive over a few hours to Vegas and kind of be there most of the time and, work out with Gil every day. And then Andre, when he was in town, he would come out and hit some balls and we'd talk and hang out in the gym. And it was really, it was surreal, to be honest. I don't know if I fully, has sunk in, all the great lessons and just being around those guys and, how high of a standard they hold themselves to and how hard they work. And I mean, Andre's, busier than ever with all his endeavors off the court. But to take the time to help me out, I mean, that he obviously didn't have to do that at all. It was pretty cool. So, I mean, just to be, I remember the first couple of practices with Andre, we were working on something on my serve and bounce the ball and look up and Andre's over there, getting ready to return. And then he's still hitting the ball huge. And it was just, it was incredible. I had to kind of, pinch myself there serving to Andre Agassi, obviously growing up and watching him and Sampras. And, it was pretty cool. So he gave some invaluable lessons and just being around those guys helped me become a better, not just a better player, but a better person, I think. And, and at the end there, they obviously were super busy with a lot of things, but we were really close actually to moving out to Vegas, at that point in time. And it just with, circumstances with my wife now and stuff, we ended up moving back to Texas and worked out great. But, I spent a lot of time there and still feel like Vegas was home there for a little while. It was great.
With Gil Reyes, for our listeners, I would hope that our listeners of Tennis Podcast know Andre Agassi, but Gil Reyes, the fitness coach, and Andre gives him so much credit for his career. So they helped you both on court, off court. Tell us about being in the gym with Gil Reyes.
Yeah, Gil's. I haven't met many people in my life that would make you want to run through a wall like Gil does. I mean, you'd do anything for him. He gives you the feeling right away that he'd do anything for you. And yeah, it was surreal, really. He just was an unbelievable guy. He had some pretty cool beliefs, in training, and obviously he's got his unique machines there that kind of reduce the risk of injury with some heavy weights. So. We were full go on that stuff, and I was able to, gain some weight and strength out there, and was playing well. It was, a little different training out there in Vegas in a bit of altitude, but it was great. I mean, the gym was every day. I soaked up every minute of being out there, and sometimes I think even the talks at lunch and dinner were just as valuable as the workouts themselves. I mean, I could see how Andre would have so much respect for him. He's such a great guy, and just such a great perspective on life, and and the grind that tennis and I guess all professional sports are, but specifically tennis. He was a great person to be around.
Now you have so many amazing experiences. We talk a little bit about the finances in playing pro tennis and how difficult that is. I can remember with suggesting to your father, I said, well, I've trained all these tennis teachers that really around the world, but all over the United States. And your son was number one in the juniors. He won Kalamazoo. And, when there is a free weekend, is to send him off to do a clinic, to talk to parents. But it's
right.
Great. We're certainly touching upon some of those things in this podcast. I had down as a question, you've already used that expression, you pinch yourself. I mean, to ask you, and granted, I worked with you some when you were in college, some when you're on the pro tour, but it's like when you walk into Wimbledon, you pinch yourself, because now
you do.
Now you're there.
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, no, you definitely do. Wimbledon has a unique mystique to it, and it's really one of those things that's hard to explain until you're there. And a lot of times on on TV, you kind of have this, obviously as a kid, I was watching all the Grand Slams and big tournaments on TV, and you have this idea of what, the US Open is going to look like, or Wimbledon's going to look like, or Australia, the tournament, French Open, obviously. You just have an idea of what the site kind of looks like from what they show on TV and stuff. And it's always so different. Completely different. But Wimbledon is one of those ones where, even now, even this year, when you're walking around the first couple of days before the crowd gets there and stuff, and it's just a phenomenal setup. The grass looks like carpet. It's extremely quiet. There's no advertisements anywhere. It's just a kind of a surreal experience being there. And it's pretty cool to be able to go out there and compete and play sport, So.
No, it's amazing. Let's back up a little bit. Your college experience. I know when you were a young kid, you were set on going to Florida. You did love Florida. I could remember the meetings when you had, I think it was just A&M in Florida. I don't think there was others, but I remember your dad and your mom. We had meetings at HCC, Hillsborough Community College, where I was based out of. Tell us a little about Steve Denton, Bobby McKinley. My word, you had so many experiences.
Yeah.
But what was it like going to A&M? You went early.
I did.
You went after you completed 3 years of high school, basically. Tell us about going to A&M.
Yeah, I did. Obviously the homeschooling thing at IMG was difficult with how much we were practicing and stuff, but at the same time, it actually gave me flexibility to get a little bit ahead, and you kind of work at your own pace. So if you needed to miss a couple weeks for a tournament, you could get ahead and be okay with that. So I finished early, and then was obviously was a huge Gators fan growing up in Tampa my whole life, and I still have some Gator stuff hidden away somewhere, I'm sure, but. I had everything. My bedroom was full orange and blue, and I loved, football. Danny Warfel when they won the '96 when they won, and Steve Spurrier. And I just was a huge Gators fan. So I was always, if I was going to go to school, I was going to go there. And then last minute, Coach Denton and Coach McKinley convinced me to just come on a recruiting trip out to A&M and College Station. And I actually had only been to College Station one time for an ITF tournament a year or 2 years before that, and I really wasn't a fan at all, to be honest. So it was kind of funny. So I decided to go, and I fell in love with the university. I thought the team was a bit more focused on improving and being a better tennis players. I thought the organization of the university was a bit better. There's more traditions, and then mostly I think Coach Steve and Bob were just, they had been in every position on the Pro Tour that, in Grand Slam finals, winning Grand Slams and doubles, at being, top 5 in the world, and every position that I wanted to be in my career, they had already done. So I thought that I could learn a tremendous amount from them, and kind of last minute decided to move out there, and had a phenomenal experience at A&M. We still spend a lot of time there and try to go to a couple football games a year if we can. But we truly have become, once an Aggie, always an Aggie is what they say, and that is 100% true. So I had a great experience out there, and I think Steve and Bob were a huge help to my tennis in so many ways. But they were tremendous coaches.
One thing, going early, you had played 25 futures. You had a scholarship at Bollettieri's, but it was your parents' nickel that, as far as getting to tournaments. I can remember your dad. Your dad, I think there was one point where he didn't have one of those big motorhomes, and so he came over to ask me a question, and he said, "You think I should get a motorhome?" I said, "No, I think your kid's too good. I think you can't drive that motorhome across the Atlantic. I don't think you should get a motorhome." So what he did is he got a motorhome. I said, come on, Krajicek. But my recommendation, I can remember at one point going, you go your game, you go to college early. You're on a full scholarship. The USTA at one point said they did some research, and the number was it was like $90,000, regardless of what the books, tuition, fees, boarding, meals, all that is. That's how much money when you think about the support system. You got 10 guys on the team and 15 people helping the program with
Yeah.
Being at, you mentioned McKinley. I mean, Chuck McKinley won Wimbledon. So, I mean, you're just around people that, Steve was number 11 in the world in singles, 2 in doubles. Kevin O'Shea, I was out there one time because Steve had talked about myself going out. They were hoping to get a new facility and have a learning center at A&M. And it was funny. It was, is it Seth McKinley? Seth worked for Babolat, maybe still does.
Yep. Seth is, Bob's son. Yep, still works for Babolat. Yep.
So, and he was a good player. He played Big Ten tennis, so I think he played at Purdue. So Kevin O'Shea, at that time, he wasn't the assistant coach. He was managing the camps and the facility. And I think maybe he just wanted to get it going because Bob McKinley was so quiet. And he said, well, certainly your son's tennis, meaning Seth, and your tennis, the way Seth plays was much higher than the way you played, the higher level. And Bobby just kind of looked at him and, obviously respectful of Seth's tennis. And Bobby just goes, you mean if we played this afternoon? And he said, no. So anyway, Kevin O'Shea made a comment to those guys, like, no, the tennis today. And, I was just telling Harold Solomon today, go to YouTube and watch Rod Laver in 1975 play Jimmy Connors at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. It's amazing tennis. But would you recommend, I know you went at 17, would you recommend, I mean, if you could do over again, would you try to, even though it was so expensive and you mean going early? No, not go early. Stay all 4 years.
Just going to college?
And go to college 1 year later?
It was the only thing I think that is a negative about going early, which is kind of what happened in my situation was I started in the spring, which was great. Jumped right into matches, which to be honest, I personally love that. I didn't, obviously the fall is a bit different in college because it's just the individual stuff. So it's not as much action, as the spring is. You're playing dual matches right away. So it was a cool experience to jump in. I think I got a little bit fortunate too. I had a good couple first dual matches, and the first actual home match, it came down to my match. So it was 3-3, and it came down to my match to clinch, and I was able to win that, and that just kind of gave me some confidence moving forward, and it worked out great there. But the only issue I have with that is I would want whoever would go early to focus on either doing a bit more hours, maybe in the summer, especially in the early summer, the first session in the summer, to graduate in time. I think, for me, I have graduated now, which was a big goal of mine to do. But I played 4 seasons, but I was there 3.5 years, so I didn't have enough credits to graduate when I turned pro. And, I see a lot of guys that do that and they don't finish their schooling, or they, maybe turn pro a year before that. And then now they've got a 1.5 years or 2 years of school left. And obviously that's a bit more daunting to come back and get your degree. So, it puts you in a little bit of a tough spot, for that, because obviously when you finish playing your 4 seasons tennis, you can't play tennis forever. So, you want to go pro right away and play the tournaments right away. So, it kind of puts you in a tricky spot for that. But I don't think I regret it. I think it worked out well in my situation. But I think Virginia actually has a great program there where when they bring guys in, I don't even know if they allow guys to come in early, but when you go there, unless you turn pro obviously early, you have to graduate in 4 years. So they don't give you the flexibility to be like, I'll do the 5th year, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think it is good for the coaches to really, put their foot down and make guys graduate. I mean, it's such a good opportunity to take advantage of that. I mean, playing at a good school and get a good degree while you're there. I mean, it teaches you priceless time management skills. I think you mature as a person. I mean, you can tell even now on the tour, the guys that have played in college or haven't, just with how they handle, situations, in life or around tennis, managing their time and stuff like that. I think it's a very, a good thing to have that college experience behind you. And, so that's the only kind of regrettish thing I would say is not being able to graduate when you finish your actual tennis playing career there.
I forgot that you went in January. I do remember that right out of the box, right out of the gate, the get-go, that you played a 3-all match. I'm always telling these young kids who want to play college tennis, I mean, less than 3% of juniors play college tennis. It's not easy play college tennis, even like a high-level Division III.
Sure.
But I think, especially if it's in the NCAA tournament where you're playing a 3-all match, and if your team wins, you move on, you lose. Do you remember how many 3-all matches you had?
I actually had quite a few. The exact number, no, but I had probably at least 7 or 8, and over my career. Not in the first year, obviously, but yeah, it was pretty cool to start off with a win there. That's, it's a very positive experience if you win it, in a very negative experience if not. But I was fortunate enough. I think most of them I was able to pull through, but we didn't have any big 3-all ones in the tournament. So yeah, like you said, when it's win or go home, that makes it a very, very high pressure situation for some young kids to handle. No doubt about that.
I know Patrick Gibson. He played for Steve. I've spent time with Patrick. He went early, I believe. Matt Clore, he looks back at it, but Matt grew up in a small town in Western Carolina and didn't have the exposure that you did. So I don't think he had the inner belief system that he was good enough to play pro tennis. So I mean, everybody's journey, everybody's life is different. Coming back to being in Texas, you said you're an adopted Texan. One thing I like, I lived there 10 years. I've been out there many times on business. Both my kids were born in Texas. The Texans have missionary zeal. They're like the people from Boston. They think it's the greatest place in the world, and you got to respect that. So tell us, why are you now an adopted Texan?
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Like you said, I think the pride here is great. I mean, growing up in Florida, I mean, I like Florida. It's not like I don't like Florida, but if someone says something bad about Florida, when you're sitting around at dinner or whatever, you're just kind of like, whatever. And if you do that, if you say something bad about Texas in front of someone from Texas, they legitimately get angry and cause a scene. So it's one of the few places I've ever been that has that, no matter how calm the person is, everyone has a big sense of pride in Texas. And, in growing up in Florida, I didn't, hunt obviously or fish or listen to country music or anything like that. And going to school at A&M, I had a roommate my first year that was from a small town, about 45 minutes from College Station, called Franklin. And, his name's Austin as well.
Yeah, right.
And Austin Flores. And we lived together for 3 years after that, 3.5 years, and got really close, and we're still really close. We still go on a hunting trip every year and try to see each other as much as we can, obviously with my insane schedule. But, he was playing country music obviously in the room, and, I didn't like it at all. And it's one of those things that everyone that's come there, Jeff D'Adamo said the same thing. We had a bunch of guys from Tampa on the team actually, strangely enough, but, when they come there, they say, I'll never listen to that. I'll never like that. And every single one of them in 2 weeks is that's all they listen to. It's kind of funny how that works, but so I got into that, and then we went to his to where he's from a couple times, and was able to hunt some and shot a hog on one of the first hunts we had, and so it was kind of a quick entry to that, and then we started fishing a good bit, and it was a good kind of escape from obviously the huge grind of tennis and working every day, practice, school and everything. It was a good break from that. So I really fell in love with that lifestyle and the slower pace of the small towns, how everyone was not in a rush to do everything. I mean, traveling as much as I had already at that point, you just feel like you're always, you got to do something, you got to pack, you got to unpack, you're going somewhere, and there was just no rush at all in some of these small towns. And I love that. So, I really started to like that aspect of it. And then we kind of kept the hunting tradition going, for the last, 12, 15 years. And, I had some various movement after that. I was back in Florida for a bit, in California for a bit, but I felt like I was always much more at home in Texas. And when we came back here about 5 years ago, there was that instant, this is where we want to be feeling. So we've been here since, and hopefully we'll be for a long time. So.
Well, you mentioned Texas pride. I think the Aggie spirit might be greater than Texas pride.
That's probably true.
Living in Tyler, Texas, Coach Laura Hanna, who played at A&M, and through that experience coached one of her teammates. I mean, we were taking them to Europe, but I coached Laura, in the younger age groups, and So through that, I got a chance to train the PE teachers at A&M. I actually took Vic Braden to A&M, and it was
Nice.
it seemed like it was 500, maybe it was 350, but the PE majors had to go on Friday night, and we did a do's and don'ts slideshow. And the kid Clayton Stanley, I coached forever. His parents both went to Texas. He played at Texas, and he was 10, and he didn't know any better. But he was wearing these because it's very easy in Tyler, Texas, to say, okay, we got to gather some A&M clothes and we got to gather some Texas clothes. And we had young Clayton. He was wearing like too big a cowboy hat and big shoes. His shoes were on the wrong feet, and no sock on one foot and a sock on the other, and just in terrible form, hitting say a forehand volley. And then we had him wearing Aggie clothes, and he had perfect form. So I showed this slideshow, and the people were going crazy. That's where they get up and they're spinning like they do at the football game, and so then I took Braden. And I said, Vic, okay, you're going to come to Tyler, Texas, but let's go to Texas A&M instead. We'll have the kids from Tyler, and we'll watch a match at the end. And that was what we would do. We'd go and train the PE teachers, and we would stay for a weekend match. So anyway, Vic showed that slideshow, and the late Braden. I know your dad brought you to meet Vic. So Vic shows this, and talk about wanting to have something on film. The place went absolutely crazy. Question with A&M. You stayed 4 years. I mean, you think career-wise that was a good move? Would you recommend kids to just take college tennis one at a time, or now that everybody's staying so fit? I mean, you're 32 and you're a young guy as far as the double circuit's concerned. What are your thoughts on people staying for 4 years?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I think a lot of guys don't realize how high the level is in college tennis until you're there and you're competing against not only the guys in your team, but all the teams across the country. I mean, the level is just exceptionally high. And it's starting to show a bit with the translation into the pro side. But, I try to recommend a lot of the young guys. I mean, I had obviously the influence of some of the IMG people as well, saying, should you go pro, college is a waste of time, this and that. And, I think one of the best decisions I've made in my career so far is definitely going to school, probably followed closely by staying in school the whole time and playing all 4 seasons. But yeah, I mean, I just think there's just so many advantages, if you look bigger picture at not just the tennis, but the time management, dealing with relationships, dealing with, making time for your friends, but also having to study, having to get ready for a big match, putting in extra work on court. I mean, it's actually impossible not to improve with the facilities and the way things are set up at colleges now, especially the big schools with, just the gyms and stuff are out of control nice. You have every recovery facility you need. If you pick wisely, you've got 2 great coaches, you've got teammates around you that want to get better. There's really no reason not to get better in a college environment. And I think the pros just outweigh the cons so much with the life skills you acquire and just be maturing as a person, which is a big deal, obviously, in tennis now. To play a full schedule, you have to be physically ready for that grind. And I think even more than physically, I think you have to be mentally ready. I mean, because tennis is a unique sport, obviously, where you lose, a lot. You lose every single week, except if you have an unbelievable year, 2 weeks of the year. Some of you're losing all the time. And I think how you deal with that separates the guys that make it and the guys that don't. You have to be able to lose and move on and get back to work and not get too high and low and kind of be on this roller coaster ride, which is so easy to get sucked into. Like I mentioned in juniors, not only in juniors, but on the pro tour in college, every level has it. So I think in college, it's a good place to mature and kind of get a better perspective on things in general. So I would say definitely it's a great option for kids.
Your teammates
Yep.
There's some A&M players that are on the tour. Let's start with this. How many of your teammates are working in tennis? Or how many A&M players?
Yeah, there's a few.
Era?
Sure. There's a few. Jackson Withrow, we never really got to play together because he redshirted my freshman year, but he's still playing on the tour now, so he's still doing very well. And Jeff D'Adamo, who was my doubles partner in college, he played on tour for a bit. And he's actually out of tennis now doing some financial stuff. But there's a few. A Russian guy, Alexei Grigorov, he's in tennis. Alexei Klegu is also in tennis, working with some young pros in Europe. Actually worked a lot with Davidovich Fokina, the guy that's playing really well now, when he was younger. And then some of the other guys are still, some of the Texas guys are still some country clubs and some academies in the sport. I would say probably more than half are still involved in tennis in some way or another.
Alexei, what did you guys call him? What was his nickname? Gigi?
Goo.
What was it?
Yeah, Goo, or Klegu was his last name, and we called him Goo. And then we called Griggy. Alexei Grigorov was the Russian guy on our team. We called him Griggy.
Griggy, that's what.
And
Griggy was.
Yeah, I think
Griggy was sent to me, and I remember it came a couple times. His father came, and so many stories. With
oh yeah,
was he back in Russia? Is he coaching?
He is. He's back in Moscow. We actually, he is coaching. I got to catch up with him a couple of years ago. We played the tournament in Moscow in the fall, which probably won't happen anymore. But that was 3 years ago, I guess, in 2019. And he was over there coaching some, and came out to the tournament, and we got to catch up and spend a couple of days together, which was awesome. We had a great time, and they actually had a Texas barbecue place there in Moscow, believe it or not. And we had a good time catching up. And it's funny how those guys that you get close with in college, you can be away and not talk to them for 5 years, and then when you kind of see them again or meet up somewhere, it's like you kind of never left, so it's a quick catch up in a minute. Yeah, it's crazy.
He was a volunteer coach, and I was at the NCAAs, and he just had no filter.
Zero.
He just came up, because after your junior year, you started coming forward, and he just came up, and just Austin is coming to the net now. No one can touch him. He didn't come to the net the first and second time you told him. And I think the reason that he did that was actually in the same pretty much the same conversation. Steve was right there, Steve Denton. He goes, "I didn't do what you told me to do," with whatever it was. But no, I can remember you guys playing against each other in the 14s at the Eddie Herr. And nice guy Austin. I said, "Austin, you need to go get an umpire." And, of course, years later, the guy is so honest. He goes, yes, I was cheating him. It's like just no secrets. With World Traveler, you were. This is a compliment. Low maintenance. I remember your dad telling a story that he had dropped you off at the airport, had you all set. And, you were really young, and by that time, cell phones were out, and you called your father up, and he was, like an hour and a half had already gone by, and he just, you're just going to have to figure it out. He tells that story. But no, when you played Futures, maybe some challengers, but I think Futures, I got a kick out of. We're trying to help your parents with the hotel costs, and you stayed with a lot of my former students.
Definitely, yeah.
When you were traveling,
met a bunch of amazing people. Yeah, it was awesome.
But
huge help.
What's that? Oh, huge help. No, thanks. But with for our listeners, is that Austin would, I said, well, just if you're not playing a match, you need to practice twice a day, get to the gym, but help out. But you get so many compliments for your work ethic. How's it go? It won't work if you work. Tell us about. I know you mentioned L.A. and Las Vegas, and you were spending a little time at our place in Tampa. But at one time you were house sitting for the Bryan brothers. Tell us some competitiveness or some stories on their competitiveness, the Bryan brothers. You spent a lot of time around those guys.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, they've been great mentors to me, and I got the privilege to play against them a couple times, and lucky enough to win a couple of those. But they're unbelievable guys. Obviously the best ever. But yeah, they are exceptionally competitive. I've had some funny experiences with them at Davis Cup, and a couple random practices at the Houston clay courts. And they get mad. I almost signed up at the Houston Clay Course one time. We were at one of the back courts practicing, just us three, and we were doing some drill or something, and I think Bob hit Mike or something, and so he got pretty pissed off and took a ball and just full power at Bob, hit him. So Bob runs over, grabs a full Gatorade bottle, and just absolutely, slings it at Mike, drills him in the leg. Bottle breaks everywhere, and they basically just go at it for like 5 minutes. And I'm just kind of there, and I'm like, what do I do? So it was just hilarious. And then Mike got mad. He's like, I'm playing with Austin the rest of the year, and so I'm just sitting there like, can't tell if they're joking or whatever. And so it's pretty funny. And then the great thing that is though that 5 minutes later they're totally fine, and we're continuing on with practice. But they were amazing in Davis Cup. I got to go 3 times as practice partner, and I'd always be kind of helping out with the double stuff, and I'd play sets with Ryan Williams or Dennis Kudla or a bunch of other guys. We'd play doubles against them, and the Bryans were known for never losing 2-up, 2-back games or sets at all, really, in practice. The whole Davis Cup, like they didn't lose. And that's how high they held their standards in practice and stuff, which is obviously a big reason of why they were so successful. But we got lucky a few times and won some 21 games in sets, and they were not happy a bunch of times. It was pretty funny, but it was a great lesson, though. Just of how from the minute they step on the court to the minute they step off, they are pedal to the metal. They barely take. Their practices are notorious, but they barely take any breaks for water. It might be an hour and a half, but you feel like you're out there for 3.5 hours because they are just. Miss a ball, next ball in. It's just nonstop repetitions. You're hitting a ton of balls, and if you blink for a minute, you're going to get hit. They're so intense and focused and full go. You really have to raise your level, and I think I took a lot of good lessons from them, and I still don't do probably as good of a job as they do, but I try to match some of their standards with that kind of stuff, and I think that's been a good lesson for me, especially as a younger player.
Famous story, obviously you're an insider for me. It's like, oh yeah, I heard this, I heard that. But they were on the way out to the US Open perhaps to play another final. They're in a cab and they get in a fight in the back seat. Of course, Bob's a little bigger than Mike, but Mike's ready to throw the punches.
That doesn't surprise me.
But no, someone told me that they may start playing pickleball. And they would be awesome. There's money to be made in pickleball. Have you heard that? Those guys?
Yeah.
It's hard to know if they could be away from competing.
And that's a good point. I think it would have to be just the competition aspect of it would be, attractive for them. But yeah, they would be very good. Pickleball is pretty fun. I've got to play a few times, and it's pretty addicting. A little bit different strategy, but it's addicting for sure.
Didn't one of the Bryans, maybe Bob, your dad was telling me, went out to Indian Wells with you recently?
Yeah, Mike. We come really. Yeah, Mike. He's in Tampa a bit more. And Bob's down in Miami. But Mike came out a few days in Indian Wells and was helping us out a little bit in practice. And it's anytime you get to spend around those guys. Bob as well in Miami and stuff. It makes a huge difference for us as a team, and we just try to soak up everything we can. Obviously, they've been in so many big matches and handled the pressure so well that it's just a lot of lessons there to be had, and hopefully we can continue to learn. I know Bob's helping out some with Davis Cup now, and Mike's trying to get more involved as well. So it'll be good to have those guys around, and I hope they stay in the game and keep helping guys. So.
Yeah, Patrick McEnroe said the Bryan brothers, they get pumped up for breakfast. It's amazing their energy level. With doubles, exciting to watch you play the French Open. Was it 3 match points? You probably don't want to hear that, but you guys were.
Yeah.
You had some amazing returns throughout the match, but at the end. Tell us a little bit about with your U.S. Open's around the corner. Tell us about your doubles partner in the men's, doubles partner in the mixed. You mentioned,
so I'm playing.
you mentioned Bugul already, Jessica Bugul.
Yep, I'm playing with Jessica in mixed, and then I'm playing with Ivan Dodig in men's. We've been playing through the summer. We started at a tournament in Belgrade after Monte Carlo this year, and so we've had a few months, kind of putting in some work. We've had some tough matches early on, and really found a stride there on the end of the clay court season, and played great through the grass, and it's just tennis. It goes in cycles, and you have some good weeks, you have some bad weeks, and we had a great French Open. Obviously, put ourselves in a position to win. We had 3 match points there in the finals. Great tournament, kind of filled with some of the highest highs I've had, and maybe one of the lowest lows. At the end, it's amazing how tennis is a sport that can happen, where you can have such a great week, but still at the end you're kind of devastated. So it's an interesting sport, to say the least. But we've had a good summer, and put in a lot of good work leading into New York, and we feel great. We're both healthy and feeling good, and excited to get out there and compete, and give ourselves the opportunity to do well. So
the scoring format's the same in all 4 Grand Slams, as far as
except Wimbledon is 3 out of 5 still. So
that's the only one. What are your thoughts on that?
I like it. I like it a lot, actually.
You like the 3 out of 5?
Yeah, I think it's cool. We don't get to play even in Davis Cup anymore. We don't get to play that, so I think it's a cool opportunity for us to play longer matches, and I think it gives a little bit of an advantage maybe to the more solid doubles team. It's not easy to beat anybody 3 sets in a row, or 3 sets at all. So if you can kind of stay out there and play well, you're going to have an opportunity at some point. It's just a long time to be out there playing a tennis match, so it gives a different perspective, brings fitness into play, which is one of our strengths as well. So I like it.
As a lefty with forehand in the middle, do you generally play the same side, or can you play both? Or you prefer to?
I played both. Yeah, I played both throughout my career. I played ad mostly, actually, but with Ivan, I have played deuce the whole time. So forehand in the middle, which is a big advantage, especially as returner's partner. Get that forehand volley. It's a little bit easier to move on that. And I've played both. I think it seems like there's a good bit more, at least the top level guys, that prefer returning on the ad. So I think it's actually a big benefit if you can be a good deuce returner. It opens up a lot of opportunities for your partner wise, just because there seems to be a lot more, especially singles guys prefer usually to play returning on the ad side for whatever reason.
Well, I think throughout junior tennis, typically what happens is the better player plays the ad court, because the theory is that's the game.
Great point.
But
right.
But Vic Braden used to always say it's the point before what determines whether you're ad in or out. Actually, in the deuce court, we're always telling people that for the most part, you got to do the math. You can't just throw an opinion out there. Keep it fact-based. If players play in the deuce court, players play in the ad court, because of how the score is set up. I mean, it does switch around during the tiebreaker, but in regular games, if for game number 1, you're returning, and the deuce court player takes 3 returns, the ad court player takes 2. Now the game 3, when you're returning, the deuce court player is right away taking the 4th return. So they end up taking more returns. And then righties typically have a very strong continental grip, elbow in, they have a tendency. This may not be at the pro level, but certainly at the lead up levels, and there's so many of them, grassroots level, junior, college, futures, challengers, so many steps. But the player is typically, 85% of players are right-handed, and they'll hit forehand volleys mostly to the deuce court. It's kind of like the kid who can't catch in baseball is picking their nose or picking dandelions, so you put them in the right field. Because also the people who are running, the righties, 85% or more, are running around their forehand, and they don't swing horizontally, they have a horizontal pull. But the deuce court player, Braden used to always say, has to be more consistent. He has a fantastic tape. It was set up for mixed doubles. Mixed doubles is a fantastic adventure, but everything on that tape, and a lot of times, like Martina Navratilova, who did so well, it said, well, women playing mixed is still real doubles. It's not one up, one back. It's going forward. What are some trends that you think are changing in pro tennis with doubles?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say nowadays there really aren't that many just very natural good volleyers anymore. Obviously a lot of the singles guys especially, but a lot of the doubles guys too are staying back now, especially on clay, on second serves. And I'm still a little bit more of the traditional style where I come in on everything that I can. But there are a lot more guys that are staying back. I think a lot of guys are getting significantly closer to the net now. It used to be you'd have room if you hit a decent return to get across, and then the player would have to hit a first volley, and you can kind of work your way into the point like that. But now the strategy for most teams is they want to finish the point with the serve or the volley right away. So they want the net guy to get the first ball. So the guys are playing a lot more I formation. They're getting, literally an inch from the net, if not closer, and borderline reaching over every time. So it's kind of an interesting change. So I think actually because of that, the lob is coming back a bit off the return. I think that's an effective play now against a lot of the top teams that just get their nose on the net. And I think also playing that way, being so close to the net, your volleys don't have to be as good. You kind of just put yourself in the right position, and you can get away with some more average volleys, shaking some volleys just by being in the right place. And you can tell a lot of guys aren't natural volleyers, but they're very good position volleyers, so they get where they need to be. And so the art of hitting really difficult first volleys and stuff is fading a bit. But at the end of some of these big tournaments, you still see some of the classic doubles teams that play well all year come through. So this format as well, not in the slams we play full scoring, but in the Master Series and 500s and 250s we play no ad and a third set tiebreaker. So it makes it very difficult. If you get behind in a service game, you're in big trouble. First points are critical, and it just makes it tough. And then obviously if you get to a third set tiebreaker, it's a bit of a coin flip. Anybody can beat anybody, and that's what makes me so impressive with the Bryans is they went from the old format to the new format, and they were still just as dominant, if not even more dominant. So it's very obviously impressive on their end of show actually how dominant and successful a team they were to do so well in both scenarios. It's amazing.
I'm sure in your college days you met Chuck Creasy. Was he?
Yeah.
So Chuck is very opposed to anything being a shorter format, no ad, short sets. He told me that one of his friends, I think it's a great idea. I don't ever see this happening, but if you're going to play the 10-point match tiebreaker, have that be the first set. So then the third set still is a third set. I think that's a great idea. It's like, okay, the first set's a tiebreaker, and then after that, you're assured that there will be a third set. What do you think of that idea?
That's an interesting one. I mean, it's not terrible. I would at least make the third set of I don't mind that. The other format that we kind of were pushing for a bit was to have at least add scoring, so regular scoring in the first two sets. And if you want to have the third set tiebreaker to make, obviously they don't really care about the the game or the players. They want to sell more, have more TV dollars and make the time more efficient. So they're trying to get matches shorter, basically. So I think that would be a fair compromise, where at least you can put ad scoring back in to make service games a bit more realistic, because sometimes, something happens and, there's an unlucky break or something and you're down love 30, even like a 15-40 that, that's with no ad scoring, that's 3 break points in a row, which makes it very difficult if you get behind early in service games to kind of claw your way out. Whereas deuce gives you a bit more, even if it's just kind of a mental thing, it gives you a bit more, relaxed approach that you can serve your way out of the hole a little bit. So it's an ongoing debate. I
do think that it's unfortunate that they don't show more doubles, because they shorten the format. Obviously there's different ways with Tennis Channel Plus and streaming to watch matches, but I've never been too pleased with the TV coverage of tennis. Okay, we'll come back to this match, and here living in the U.S., I mean, there's certain players that are going to be on, and you have to watch the entire match, even if it's it's kind of a one-sided 6-1, 6-2, and they just let's go to court 10, let's go to court 6, and with. Tell us a little bit about Philip Farmer.
Yeah, Phil's been great. We've been working together for a little over a year now. We started last summer around Wimbledon time here in Dallas. It's been great to be obviously in the same place. It really helps a lot, us being here and getting a good solid work base while we're home, which has been great. That's something that I struggled with the last few years, being in College Station or wherever I was, not having a unbelievable setup at home where you can really get in some good training and work on some specifics. So that's been great. I feel brings an unbelievable positive energy to our team. Yvonne has a ton of my partner Yvonne Dodig has a ton of experience, obviously winning a bunch of slams and being in all kinds of positions. He's a super serious guy, really, really hard worker, and I think Philip does an unbelievable job of balancing the team and keeping us in the right frame of mind in these big moments and tournaments. And I think we've made some big improvements the last year. And it's not always easy to see. Sometimes you get blinded by results. You're not looking at the performance, and that's what separates obviously the good guys is that they can focus on their level more so than just the outright outcome, and just trying to keep getting better as a player. So I think we've done a good job of that, and we're definitely headed in the right direction.
No, I was around Philip when he was a kid because I was out in the Dallas area, living in Tyler, Texas. And very upbeat guy. I've seen him a couple of times. Have you trained at the Lakes Academy?
Yeah, so we're still in the Lakes a good bit. We're practicing there tomorrow, but we have some buddies around town that have some courts at their house, and we use SMU courts a little bit. And there's obviously a lot of nice indoor facilities around Dallas, so we always have that option if it's raining or as it goes in Texas, if it's 110 or if it's an ice storm in February. So we've got the option for that. But we're kind of around the Frisco area mostly.
You have to say hello to Nicky Johnson for me. He owns the place, and I trained him a little bit when he was a kid. So let's tell us, what are your dogs' names, Krajicek?
Yeah, we've got two big golden doodles. I don't know if you can hear him barking there. One is named Moose, and the other one's named Tucker. But they're big, 80-pound golden doodles. One's still a puppy, the one barking there in the background. He's a bit of a psychopath, but he's getting there. He's just a year old the other day, so he's still got all the energy in the world.
But sometimes your parents are taking care of your dogs when you're on the road.
Yeah.
There you go.
Definitely. They're coming up here actually this Friday before we head up to New York. So they'll be watching the grand dogs. So we obviously really appreciate that. But they're a handful. That's for sure.
So two things. We'll end with talking about your wife and such. But with because again, as I mentioned, your parents are both athletes and your wife was an athlete. But with your health and only being 32, that's pretty young in doubles. Talk a little bit about age and how long the guys are playing.
Yeah, I mean, definitely 32 is a bit on the young side in doubles. I mean, it used to be 32 was the end for most tennis players, even not that long ago. So I think just with the advancement of, fitness, taking care of your body, nutrition, having physios on the road, stuff like that has really, improved or lengthened the age that players can play till. I think now it's more of a mental burnout, just the travel and not being able to have a normal family life and this and that really burns guys out, which I totally understand. It's kind of a crazy lifestyle, but, that's the mental side kind of gets the guys before the physical nowadays. So, it's just trying to hang in there and try to have a reasonable schedule. And, luckily, like you said, most of the family was involved in sports and knows tennis. So, my wife is a huge part of that. She understands how ridiculous our schedule is. And she played tennis at University of Illinois. So she's a very good player as well and kind of understands the scheduling aspect of it. And, but yeah, it's you can play to your 40 now in doubles, really, and even a little bit more if you wanted to.
So she played at Illinois. What was her background? Did she play a lot of sports growing up? Just tennis?
Yeah, a little bit. She was a very, very good junior player. She grew up in St. Louis, so played in the Missouri Valley there, and did really well in juniors, and got recruited all over. I think it was her goal at one time maybe a bit more of her dad's goal, for her to play some pro tennis, as well. But, I think she's extremely smart. So I think she was focusing a bit more on some academics, and then ended up going to University of Illinois, which obviously has a very good program and history of success. So she was a great player there, and got a bunch of different degrees, and she's super smart. Did her master's at A&M as well. So yeah, she's definitely the brains of the family, to say the least. So
Now, I've known for a long time. One of my sisters was off the charts with that test scores
Yep.
and grades, and she got a master's in math at Illinois.
Wow.
But it certainly helps to be married to an athlete who has a tennis background, because she just realizes your lifestyle and what it takes. Correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a huge part of it. And yeah, I mean, there's really no way to explain that. And I also think, I joke about it, but I also think you have to play tennis for a living, or probably any professional sport. I just obviously know tennis better. You have to be a little bit insane, to do it for as long as I have, and travel and make the sacrifices and do all the little things and deal with the ups and downs and failures. And it sounds a little bit better than it is at times. Obviously you're living out of a suitcase, and it makes it a little bit difficult, but it's opened up so many doors for me, and given me the opportunity to travel the world and meet so many amazing people, and give myself a position, the opportunity to be in a position to play on the biggest courts in the world and the biggest tournaments. And I'm definitely grateful for that. But it has it's like anything else. It's tough times and moments as well. That's the good.
And with scheduling, you're at the level now. You just pretty much know what your schedule is. It's not like when you were, coming up through futures and playing challengers. You pretty much can set your schedule and play where you please, right?
Pretty much now, yeah. So actually, it hasn't been that long. We had a bit of a period last couple of years where I could do that, and then this. But even up until the French Open this year, a lot of the Masters Series and 500 levels in doubles are very difficult cuts. So realistically, if you're not in the top 25 or so, you can't get in on these tournaments. So after the French Open, we were luckily able to, I would say, now moving forward, hopefully this year and stuff, we can kind of pick the tournaments we want to play, which is a great advantage to have. But yeah, for the last, decade, it's been kind of you got to kind of go where you get in, and you hope to know your schedule, but you don't always, get in where you think, and you might have to play a tournament in, Korea instead of Japan or whatever it may be, but you might have to play somewhere where you didn't quite expect it, but keeps us on our toes at least.
With tell the listeners how it works. Like say Indian Wells, it's not quite a 2-week event, but it's longer than a week, correct?
Yep.
And the singles players can drop out of the sky and bump the doubles guys out.
Yep.
Obviously, you're on the double side of it. Explain how the cut works and what your thoughts are on it. When it, like say, a singles player decides to play.
Difficult. So the cut is just ranking based, so it's a combined ranking. So for singles, obviously, it's your singles ranking, and then however many guys sign up, the cut might be at 90 or whatever it is. So then the doubles side, there's a doubles ranking, but you can use your singles ranking as well to get in. So whichever one is higher for you, you can use that. So there's essentially 2 of every spot. So there's, obviously a singles guy that's 20 in the world and a doubles guy that's 20 in the world. So if the singles guy, decides that he wants to play kind of last minute, just to make a few extra bucks or whatever it may be, he can sign up and kind of bump the doubles guys that are trying to make a career out of it, and pay the bills. They can bump them out of the tournament. So it's difficult because obviously if the singles guys do want to play and compete, and they're obviously great players, and people, there's an argument on the other side too, where, people come to watch and it fills the stadiums, which I totally understand, and agree with. That's great. But a lot of times, the guys will kind of sign up just to get the prize money or get an extra practice day or something like that. And unfortunately that happens quite a bit. So it makes it a bit difficult for the doubles players to have a set schedule and be able to get into the bigger tournaments, because obviously at Indian Wells, the prize money's pretty good, and it's a very nice place. So the singles guys might want to play there a little bit more than say in, a 250 in wherever it may be in Atlanta or something. So you just have to kind of wait and see. The cuts are always tricky, and sometimes they're a lot higher than you think, and you might miss some tournaments that you thought you were going to be able to get into, and it makes it just another challenge, on the tour. So,
well, one thing before we sign off, I'm doing my simple math here. So 25 years ago, I filmed you. Your first coach from Brandon, I remember him watching the tape, and he was so positive. He said no. He recommended for you to go on and make changes. Do you remember who your first coach was?
Yeah, Pete Stecker.
Pete Stecker, yeah.
At BSTC, at Brandon Swim and Tennis Club there, where my dad played some local matches and stuff, and that's kind of where I started and worked with him a little bit, and he kind of told us that we might need to find someone that could help me move forward a little bit quicker and stuff, and it worked out great. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him saying that, and also for him instilling the love of the game. I think at that age too, it's a lot about having fun and enjoying it, and so I think I got that from an early age, which was a big benefit down the road for sure.
Yeah, 25 years. I mean, your parents did so many smart things where they would organize. This is before you went to Bollettieri's, but they would get juniors together and just play. There's
right.
So many things. What a long career that you've already had, and knock on wood, it sounds like you're doing all the right things to stay healthy, and certainly not only just for the US Open. You got two great partners, and we wish you the very best for the US Open. But it's been great to have you on. Let's just sign off. Where if you're just asked, what advice would you have for junior tennis players and their parents? I mean, obviously, we tell people all the time that college tennis is the goal, pro tennis is a dream. I mean, it's so difficult to play college tennis. But if you had to give some advice to, we'll just end with that. If you had to give some, you already have throughout this whole podcast, but if you were to just give some advice to juniors and their parents, what would you say? Yeah,
I mean, I think one of the biggest things is for me, and my success has been perseverance. I mean, there's so many ups and downs along the way, and things that you didn't think would happen do, and having a long-term vision. Try not to get sucked up into the results of junior events, and then obviously it goes on. I mean, I wanted to play pro tennis. I knew that from a young age. So even when you get to some of the pro level, entry level events, and college tournaments, just have a longer term vision, and realize that there's it's more important to keep improving and becoming a better player than to necessarily win at that level or win that day. I mean, it's a long game, and there's a lot of matches you're going to play over your career. That's for sure. So, I think perseverance is the number one thing to get through all those things, and just focus on the long term goal. So if it's on technique rather than playing the way to win, or obviously cheating or something like that in junior tennis, where there's obviously a lot of pressure to do that. That only gets you so far, and at a certain point, all that stuff just doesn't work anymore. And it's really the guys that buckle down and decided to become a better player every day that make it through the clouds there. So I would say that's have a long-term vision for sure.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that. I think I have to sign off, but I used to tell you that, Krajicek, if you don't make it in tennis, you could be a model. And that sure as hell because you don't look like your father.
That's right.
I had to get that in, as you got your good looks from your mother. But Austin, it's been great to talk to you. Tell us one more time, what are the dogs' names?
Moose and Tucker.
Moose,
yep,
Moose and Tucker. And what kind of dogs?
They are a handful. Golden Doodles.
Golden Noodles. Okay.
Doodles. Yep.
Doodles. I have to use that. Everyone, once in a while I tell people, I call them, I said, well, I even asked them, if you were a dog, what type of dog would you be? And
our dogs have it pretty good. They get treated better than most people, I'd say. So it wouldn't be a bad play to be one of them. That's for sure.
No, definitely in America, you can't use the line anymore that the coaches treat me like a dog.
Definitely not.
Dogs are treated so well. But Austin, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time. I know our listeners, and we'll see you down the road. But good luck at the next tournament, which is the US Open.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Steve. Appreciate it, man.
It was fun. Thanks. Go Aggies.
Yes, sir. Gig 'em. Have a great night.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
See ya.
Listeners, thank you for listening. Austin Krajicek. It's just amazing. Austin, low maintenance, hard worker. Like this, no roller coaster. But for our listeners also too, what the parents have done, and all parents do it, but just from a tennis standpoint, the attitude of the household, the lifestyle, total commitment, and it's great to know that he's loving tennis and still playing pro tennis and still playing the Grand Slams. But hopefully you got quite a bit out of listening to that. So thanks, Austin. Thanks, listeners. And have a great day. Adios, amigos.